We are on the air, Mike.
Good to see you,
Yeah.
Frank.
How you
Welcome
doing?
back.
Good. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm great. Ready for another episode of Perspective Shift.
Yes, I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who we diving into today?
Dolores Cannon.
I
Yep.
love it. I
Yep.
love it.
Her father actually invented the cannon.
Well, she's old enough. She's old enough.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Just messing with people.
No, I'm excited for this week's episode.
Yeah.
Frank and I were trying to find somebody last week, and randomly, I'll be listening to YouTube and, different stuff when I go, like for a walk each morning when I get up. And Dolores Cannon was somebody who's, kind of just populated, on my different suggestions, whatnot, for years now. And I've always, listened to her stuff here and there. And Frank and I were talking about this morning. Dolores Cannon is like, it's like listening to your grandma. And it's like so comforting. And it's very cool to hear these different concepts, these metaphysical concepts, consciousness, etc., talked about people from all different walks of life. Because sure, you can expect, certain types of people or whatever, like, okay, yeah, that's something, they're into, or they fit, the mold of what we've always pictured somebody, who's into these types of concepts would look or act like. And then you have a woman such as Dolores Cannon who comes along, and it's like talking to your grandma. And, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because here's a woman that's born in 1931 from St. Louis, Missouri.
Yep.
And, I don't know her affiliation. I don't know if she's probably knowing this stuff didn't have one. But you would look at her and probably think she's slightly more conservative than liberal.
Yeah, you totally would.
It looked like someone goes to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And even the way her mannerisms, the way she talks, very matter
And
of fact.
dresses too,
And it is interesting because I remember starting getting into seeking out a lot of this metaphysics stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would always run into people that were very like that new agey thing. And when I say that, you know what I'm talking about. They're very flighty in the sense that when I ask questions from a what I call a logical perspective or something I want to understand, like how do you explain it to me? All of a sudden they get very loose in their explanation. If I didn't get it, they're like, well, you're just not ready. And I'm like,
hold on.
Yeah, it was weird. So. But I believe they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And it was an image they were going after rather than the information. So, again, what's cool is now every day, we live our lives, people, it's very difficult to tell what somebody is because it's not about the image anymore. Mm-mm. It's very funny. People want to look a certain way, do it a certain way, and it's like, nah. But how do we feel? What information's out there? And I don't care who you are. It's like it crosses all these divisions, these lines, male, female, white, black. It doesn't matter. We're human. And these bits of information have no correlation with any of the other affiliations. They're not affiliated to any tribal aspect. It's all individualism. And the more we develop our individualism, we play better in the tribe, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And Dolores comes in and talks about this stuff. And when you listen to her, again, there's some things she talks about that's like, wow, like she gets into aliens or extraterrestrials.
Yep, and UFOs.
And stuff. And I find it fascinating, but when you listen to her talk, it's like, it doesn't seem like she has a crazy angle.
No.
Yeah, again,
she speaks so matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly. It's very matter of fact.
Now,
I haven't had any experiences personally, at least I remember. I was probably like Men in Black where they shot me in the head with the gun.
Or one of those.
I wiped out my mememory. I think Karen has that gun too. I swear to God. She wipes my memory out just to play with me.
Wipes the memory, restart.
I don't remember saying that. She'll bring it up. I'm like, I don't recall saying that. And then I get that look. I'm like, okay, I might have said it.
I may have said that.
Let's pack the ship. We're going to Hawaii.
I
don't remember having the conversation, but we're going. And you said, I'm paying for it? All right, I guess we say that.
Let's do it.
I care.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're bringing your best friend out. We're like, I don't remember having this conversation.
Funny how that works, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get shit for this one.
Oh, God.
Mike's going to Man in Black. So I'm like, I don't remember saying that.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Even though we're sitting there recording it, so I'm pretty much screwed.
We've left evidence.
Yeah.
No, but...
all right, so fill us in some of Dolores' information.
Yeah, so, a couple of things. So I know that she first started out, kind of doing this from the aspect and angle of like a hypnotherapy. That was her main, kind of start, if you will, with all this. From there, as she began working, with different clients, patients, whatever, people, whatever you want to call them, she began to kind of realize, okay, there is a big connection when I am walking somebody back into their subconscious mind. And their past life experiences. She started to see like, oh my goodness, like
out, yeah.
These past lives are coming to the surface, and these individuals are unconsciously, not consciously, unconsciously talking about these past life situations, etc. And she began to kind of find this connection between those, and that was a lot of her purpose, behind this work. And as she began to get deeper and deeper into what she calls the subconscious mind, and she talks about this, it's not so much like a clinical subconscious mind, because that's been labeled something very specifically by the scientific community,
therapists,
therapists, counselors, all that type of stuff. She describes the subconscious mind, what she labels as a subconscious mind is much larger than how we look at it in a clinical sense.
Yeah, clinical sense, they put it like the habitual mind.
Yeah, that perfect, exactly.
So and she just used subconscious. You can very well use higher conscious.
Yeah,
so
and she talks about that.
Yeah.
She says that when I'm talking about the subconscious, I'm talking about that higher consciousness. I'm talking about your God
not
consciousness.
the habitual mind, but the mind that's connected to the universal source.
Yep.
Yeah. And
she explains that like one of her gifts and her talents is, let's say you have 1 out of 20 people coming in, and out of those 20 people, one should be able to turn off the conscious thinking mind after undergoing hypnosis and having a breakthrough, etc. Well, with her techniques and what she's created or been accustomed to, she has been able to kind of flip the script on that number, and she proudly states, 1 out of 20 would not be able to turn off the unconscious mind, the conscious mind, meaning she's able to get through to 19 of her different, people she's working with, ultimately saying, hey, I know how to help you, get into that unconscious state where you can lose the thinking mind. Because the thing about hypnosis is it's participatory. And hypnotherapists know this, definitely like stage hypnotherapists know this, people
have you
out there.
Ever done it?
I've never done it.
Oh, all right.
Have you?
Yeah, a couple of times, yeah.
Wait, like in public, like where somebody brought you on a stage and performed hypnotherapy?
No, I went to a hypnotherapist. I went to several of them.
Dude, tell me about it.
So yeah, I remember the first time I went to a hypnotherapist, and it was suggestion. It was kind of like to overcome ways of thinking,
Okay.
Like getting over like the wordiness type of stuff. I didn't really have any habits as far as like smoking, drinking, eating, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious because somebody told me about it, so I went in and did it, and it was cool. I went into a slight trance, but I was fully well aware. I was also an ability to push back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember doing that, but it felt comfortable and stuff. So I remember doing that, and I did a couple of times, but it was one time I had this, a friend of mine, she was getting into past life regressions, and she told me about hypnotherapy and stuff like that, and I knew about Dolores Cannon, so I mentioned it. He goes, oh yeah, that's the woman I'm studying pretty much, and I don't know if she studied directly with her.
Mm-hmm.
I know Dolores died in 2014, so I knew this client before that, but so I knew about Dolores when she was still alive, but close to the end of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I did a session with her, and it was wild because I was like in there. She walked me through it. Next thing you know, I don't remember anything other than when I came out of it. And what she did is she recorded everything, and I could hear my voice back when she asked me questions about my past lives. And
see, that is cool.
Yeah, and it was. And I just, there were 2 past lives that were connected that she brought me into. And again, this woman, my friend, she was just starting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious to go to her now. It's just been many years, so I know she lives in.
We should have her on the show.
Yeah, she lives in. I believe she's in Utah right now.
We'll have to.
Yeah.
Have her zoom in with us or something.
We could zoom her in. So
some sort of way to interview her.
Yeah. So anyway, so I did that, and it was pretty wild because after I listened to the recording, it was interesting to see the past lives that I came into, and I think I told the story before. The past life. One, I was a Native American, and it was weird when I'm walking. I remember walking to the village, and I could look down. I could see my feet, my hands, whatever. You can't see. I could just see others. So I'm looking out of the eyes of this human being. And then the other one, I was kind of a horseman, like the Genghis Khan period. But I was just, I don't know where I stood in the tribe, if you will, because everybody's bland. It was just a moment in time, and I visually remember it now as we bring it up. But I don't know, and I think it's because I don't know if I was a warrior in both or what have you. It's very difficult to tell, but I think that's kind of the theme of my life, like letting go of that aspect of it, but utilizing it for good, if you will. Again, this is a story I tell myself, so
Absolutely.
it sounds good.
No, but like
Yeah.
that's what we're living. All we're living, every single one of us, is just a series of stories that we've held on to in our heads. That's all this whole experience is.
And at this point in my life, I'm trying to still, connect and play in the world, but consciously, how do I do it at a greater level? And what I mean, what's my reference? My reference is to take care of me and everyone around me simultaneously. I don't care who they are. And there is a way to do that. There's a niche. There's a place to do that. You can literally take care of yourself and others simultaneously. A lot of times when you get out of whack, you either have to take care of yourself or you take care of the others and you suffer. And that seems to be a game, but when you're out of balance and you don't see this thing, it seems like, well, I got to take care of myself. I can't be bothered with you. And when you're in that place, that's a safe place to be. And then sometimes you just have to take care of others and put yourself aside. But there is a way to get to this, like build a bridge so you get this place where you're simultaneously taking care of yourself and others at the same time. And that's where the golden rule comes, do unto others, right? And when you learn that and you can get into that sweet spot, if you could stay there, life is just amazing. There's always and forever be challenges. But the challenges then wake you up, even, amp up the volume for you to be more alert. That's what they do. That's what a challenge for. It's not to collapse you, but you can choose to collapse. And as I went through this past life regression, even though I'm like, okay, it was cool, it was cool. But all of a sudden, as the years went on, I refer back to that, and it does something to the development of me looking, okay, probably shouldn't act that way. It's not going to work. I know it's not going to work. So why do it? Like, why get upset? If I get upset, it's not going to work. So all these culminations of everything from the past life regression to all these things I read about and living it, they're starting to manifest now in my behavior to circumstance situation. So people like something good happens. People are like, oh my God, you manifested. I'm like, yeah, I
also manifested the shit that happened to me last week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly how that's the truth. That's so the truth.
Yeah, so it's no longer about what I manifest, because that's interesting. It's cool. It's how I respond to it. So if I manifest a lot of money, when I do that, I don't get overly excited about it. I don't like, when's the shoe going to drop either. I don't do that. I don't play that role anymore.
Yeah.
But when something helps in the other direction, I stay in that same place. I'm in this place. Yes, I'm excited, but not like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then when shit goes south, I'm like, oh God, damn, like that.
Yeah.
So
the world's out to get me.
Yeah. So as I leveled up to a higher place of a higher understanding, and the way I got there is to realize I know very little, and I still know very little. So I have an excuse.
And I'm just okay with that.
And I have an excuse.
Yeah.
But not to use it as an excuse, because when I understand I know very little, the peak of curiosity, or curiosity peaks within me, and then I get excited about stuff. So there is no end to this experience. You can talk about that. You can talk about annihilation, end of experiences, but they don't really exist. Yes, this corporeal body will eventually wither away and end up being carbon back into the soil. But there's something in me, like like Dolores talks about, the subconscious or the higher conscious mind continues on, steps out of the physical body. There is no way I can prove this other than the way I get people to understand it. If you know anything about biology, depending on what biologists you talk to, at least there seems to be across the board that every 7 years you have a completely new physical body. You know, different parts of your body will change, like the lining of your stomach every month, and so on and so forth. But down to the brain matter and the structure of your bone, every 7 years, a completely new body. So if that's the case, there was something in that body that's now in this body, but that body no longer exists. So the body of me 7 years ago is no longer here, and I realize that. If I look at my yearbook picture from high school, I'm like, damn, what happened? Yeah. Actually, I had a mullet back then, so
hell yeah, Frank.
So what was I thinking?
That's awesome.
But when I look at that, I'm like, that body no longer exists, but there's something in me that witnessed that time in my life and has witnessed this time in life. Well, that will never die. But the personality, the persona definitely did. Mm-hmm. So there's awareness that something did die, but there's something else that didn't. And that's all I can explain, where I can wrap my mind around it, where the idea of transitioning doesn't scare me, nor do I sit around thinking about it all day. It's not what I do. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm watching a movie, I don't think about the end. I just watch the moment in which I'm in. I know the movie's going to end, but I sit and watch it, and I've learned to be more present. I'm not always present. Karen will account for that, but yeah, she's my child. No, it's kidding. I love
confirm
Karen.
That
actually, Karen helps me a lot. Like, yeah, if it wasn't Karen, I'd be a miserable bastard.
Hey, but that's the reason you attract what you attract. Is to keep in that moment. This forever present moment that we call now.
Yeah. So, and that's it. So the experience I had with hypnotherapy, like, one was to like overcome some negative thing, a way of thinking, and I believe it helped. I remember one time the woman says, every time you see red, and I remember hearing her say this, you're gonna think prosperous and happy thoughts. Well, red. The reason she picked red is the most visible color to human eye. It's the lowest frequency density, so that's why they use red as stop signs and stoplights. Everyone will see it. Mm-hmm. But if they use some other color, you're like, oh, that's a pretty violet, and you should right to this intersection. It's not good.
Right.
Yeah. But, so that was my experience with that.
The hypnotherapy aspect that I like about what Dolores explains is she explains how that we try to rationalize everything with the thinking mind. So we'll go into these hypnotherapy type of sessions, or when we allow ourselves to kind of drift back into our unconscious mind, into our unconscious mind, out of the conscious mind, we try to kind of say, like, we try to be quote unquote logical and be like, oh, that could have been this, or maybe I heard that somewhere, maybe I saw that somewhere, etc. And this is where we get stuck, is we're trying to left brain analyze what can't be analyzed. Try to left brain explain these past lives experiences, or these huge amounts of knowledge and knowing that have been passed on through millennia, through consciousness, if you will. And so she talks about that, and she explains that when we can clear our conscious thinking and the analyzing out of the mind, that's when we have these different breakthroughs, and we're allowing ourselves to hemi-sync, if you will, use all the brain, not just the left side analytical portion, but also the creative, artistic, whole other realm that we have to this experience that we call reality. We're living in a very, very limited reality when it's purely analytical. And that's why we're so exhausted. That's why we're so tired. That's why we experience burnout. There is multitudes of levels within this experience, and we're just staying put on one, saying, no, this is real. If I can't spit on it, smell it, or touch it, it's not real.
Yeah.
And that's so far from the truth. In fact, there's this whole other world out there that we're not tapping into because we're just saying it's not real.
Yeah, and also too, the reason there is a theme of limitation, as I see it, limitation allows us to experience the infinite. And what I mean is, like I've mentioned this before in this podcast, that there's 12 notes in music, but yet we'll never run out of music. But can you imagine there was an infinite amount of notes? Again, it's a very difficult thing to conceive because it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. But just imagine there was. Where would you start the song? Like, what note do you choose? But having it a infinite amount of songs. Actually, most rock songs are based off of 4 notes anyway, but
That's
we'll
for
never
sure.
write a rock. So having a finite amount of resources will create an infinite amount of pleasures or experiences. In other words, there is a finite amount of fruits and vegetables on the planet. I mean, when I talk about finite, I'm talking about the types. So you got tomato, but you got just say tomato,
Roma, heirloom.
yeah, whatever it is. But you'll never run out of tomatoes because the earth will keep reproducing them. So it's an infinite amount of potatoes, but there's only a certain kind of them. So there's a finite amount of potatoes, but there's infinite amount of potatoes throughout life's history and time. So we start understanding the concept of finite and infinite, how they work together. They aren't to be separated. It's this and that. We realize, why is our life, everyone wants to be infinite. I'm like, we are. But you wouldn't know it if there wasn't a finite understanding of the game here. And Dolores talks about how Earth is one of the most ruthless places to live. It's very treacherous and hard. Yeah,
and that's true.
Yeah, it is.
She says it best.
Yeah, and again, I don't have a memory of not being an experience on the planet, but there's something in me that says, yeah, this is hard, right? like you wake up in the morning, your body's like, damn, this is heavy. Like, why can't I be lighter? It's why we probably always want to lose weight. We want to float, right? Mm-hmm. To some extent, or get stronger so we can bear the weight. So there's something about that, wanting to be stronger or lighter so we can walk around. So we realize, I remember Alan Watts says that someone's like, yeah, life's a drag. He's like, damn right, you're dragging it through your whole body. Your body is dragging your life.
Damn right.
You're dragging your body through life, and it is a drag. But that's why we came here, So we came around to hold up this bag of bones. And
That's exactly it. What Dolores always says that I love is she's like, Earth is a school, and we are all here, and there is no skipping grades.
Yeah, I keep getting left back.
There is no skipping grades, you know. You got to do the curriculum. And what she's talking about when she says Earth is a school, she's talking about our karma. We all chose to come here and experience life. We chose to come out and play these different roles so we can learn more about ourselves and remember who and what we are, which is the infinite. We're here to remember our immense amount of power. That's this experience. And so you can put yourself in these same types of experiences that, that are maybe sad, hard, difficult, all these types of, different adjectives. But even envy, all these greed, all these types of, feelings are simply here to teach us what we are and what we are not. And we are not the emotion. We are not, the feeling behind that experience. We're all of it,
Yeah.
And so to hear her kind of talk about Earth as a school is one of the best analogies that I've ever heard, about this experience.
Yeah.
Because like if you're here, and money's the only thing that you're concerned about, and family doesn't matter or anything like this, you pick this role to have the experiences to learn why family matters or why money doesn't matter, or what this all is. And it's in learning that we begin to experience life, and we begin to experience really love, which is all this is, We have love or fear, and we're here to really, really learn about love.
Yeah. And that's when you get into that state, it's not about disassociating money from family because they're two in the same. These are just, we talking about outward objects. And when you look at your loved one, you look, again, hopefully you don't, but you don't look at them as an object. You look at them as a spirit. So when we come to understand, as you come to understand this, and if you get a glimpse of what me and Mike are talking about, this is where you get to the point where it's easy to forgive somebody because you realize we don't know what path they're on. We don't know what they know or don't know, right? It's like you don't yell at someone in kindergarten for not knowing the concepts of some philosopher. You wouldn't do that. And so if you come across a human being that doesn't understand this, well, I feel it's my job to build a bridge to get them to know that. We're trying not to get frustrated and upset with them. But if I know what I know, I wouldn't get frustrated or upset, and nor would I force someone to have to understand what I understand, because there are people that have concepts way beyond the scope of where I'm at, and I would never want them to intrude. I would want them to open it up for dialogue and allow me to come in at my own pace and learn about it like I've done my whole life. But once someone forces me, and if I don't get it, they call me an idiot, that just doesn't come across very well.
It's unhelpful.
It's not cooperative. Yeah.
That does nothing.
So there is an art to this, and I'm always trying to develop the art. I'm like, some days I'm on, some days I'm way the hell off. But the art is, how do I build a bridge where the gaps of knowledge are being met? Again, as me and Mike, we're bridge builders, but we don't force anyone to walk over the bridge. Nor do we force anyone to help us build the bridge.
You're the only one that can walk across the bridge.
Yeah, but if we build a bridge, give it access, like...
we can point.
Yeah, there's a multitude of people out there, and Dolores Cannon is one of them, who are building bridges from this understanding of the physical world which we're in and the connection to other past lives that we've had. And we could see the correlation. You could see, wow, well, for one, we've been here before. So don't make it such a big deal. But the challenges are real, or the way we look at the challenges. But how I respond to the challenge is up to me. Do I get upset? But if I know something, if I know the backstory to this challenge, I don't get upset. I just go through it. I move through it, and I'm like, okay, and what do I learn? And you're going to learn something. You're going to learn something because you've never been here. What is a challenge? Unknowingly, going into the unknown, that's a challenge, right? But if you're trying to anticipate something happening that happened yesterday, and this is how it should be, you're like, what's going on? I'm like, that's if I was able to speak when I came out of my mom's womb, I'd be like, what the hell's going on? What the hell? Jesus Christ!
What the hell is it?
As a doc smacks me to shut me up.
Seriously,
yeah.
Though. Let's jump into our first clip.
All right.
And when I take a person back to what they really, really are, they're just a tiny, tiny spark of light. That's what you all are. You're just in this vehicle right now, what I call a suit of clothes. This is the costume you're wearing right now to play this part in this play. But your real soul is just like a tiny, tiny spark of light. When these tiny sparks of light flew out in all directions, some of them became galaxies, some of them became planets, and many of them were just the individual souls. And God said, go forth, my children, and learn. Learn everything there is to learn. Have experiences, learn lessons, learn everything, then return to me with all of your information. That's why they say there is no bad, there is no good. Everything is energy. Everything is experiences and lessons. So when we all have bad things that happen in our lives, that is life. But I always ask the person, what did you learn from that experience? Sometimes they haven't even thought about that. If you've learned one thing, that was the reason for having that experience. If they say, well, I didn't learn anything, it was just horrible. Well, guess what's going to happen if they say that? They got to do it again. They failed that grade. You have to do it again, and it'll be with the same people, same experiences, even be harder the next time. Because this is just a school. And it's only one of many, many schools you will attend. But when God sends us out, remember, we're on these adventures accumulating everything we can accumulate. We are like cells in the body of God. But when you're having these experiences, they've said before, it's just a play, it's just an illusion. I've had people, when they've gone through the death experience, they look back and they'll say, it's just a play. I see all the actors on the stage, they're playing their parts. The people are standing in the wings and getting ready to come on stage and play their parts. It's just an illusion. But when I was in it, it seemed so real. But now that I'm over here, he said it's like a blink of an eye. That's how quick it is. We get caught up in it. That's why you have to learn to figure out, remember, you designed. It's your play. You're the producer, director, actor, and writer of the script.
That was perfect. Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because you look at that and people talk about that from a historical standpoint. So you got history in which in the timeline in which Earth has been going, and then you have other, like what she talks about, other past lives where it can go beyond these points. But there seemed to be a fractal connection here where everything replicates onto itself, and it's to give us a new opportunity to take it to a higher level, so to speak. That's why we go and practice certain things. We want it the next time. I don't keep practicing it to stay the same. I keep practicing it to get to a different level, a different understanding. So that seems to be the reoccurring theme just in life in general. And then she takes it to a level that most wouldn't experience, with the level of having that, past life aggression, where you go back and see yourself as another life. Which I think when we do that, people are like, well, when you study history, what does history tell you? And I'm like, well, it tells me we're still here. It definitely points out doing this doesn't work. And people are like, well, if I do it better. I'm like, yeah.
There's the thinking mind.
You try to do it better, right? Like someone could take any concept and we're trying to control other people. I'm like, what happens is it's not that this type of way of living was wrong. It's just the people who did it didn't do it right. I'm like, oh, and you have the secret answer. And what I mean is when you take a collective understanding of any type of politics, whether it's communism, neo-Marxism, all these type of concepts where somebody's going to choose what you and I do, it will never work. But with the people coming up trying to sell it will tell you, well, they just didn't do it right. And I'm like, really? We're going to try to buy into this again? It's like, you go on vacation, you're talked into buying a piece of property that it's going to be underwater in 5 years. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
Good. Just sign to take it off so I get the free meal.
Exactly.
And so more people are buying into it. So it's like, what other stories are you here to tell? And it's more about when we get more into the individualism understanding of it, all of a sudden the village or the group of people you're around, the tribe, actually lives more prosperous. But if you start from the tribal understanding, you have to defend it, and you'll overcome, and that becomes a problem. So we overcome from a tribal thing rather than individualism. As we start to move into more individualism, it doesn't mean we do away with the tribe, because the tribe is a collaboration to expand beyond the point in which we're in. But all of a sudden, everyone in the tribe has a voice. And then there becomes this collective understanding, but the collective understanding is almost to live and let live. But when you understand it, you allow it. But if you don't understand it, you have to control it. So those around that are trying to control the world don't fully understand it. They may think they do. They might have the intellectual discussion on it, and they sound very articulate and very convincing on their voice. But I'm like, yeah, but we've been here before. This doesn't make any sense. And someone like a Dolores Cannon actually points us out. Guess what? Do it. We know it's going to happen to a degree. Do you want to keep going down this road? Go for it.
Well, I think it's cool how she links the past life regressions and everything like that to karma. Like, hey, look, all this experience is you coming back around again to remember or to relearn, what you needed to know about yourself. And that's extremely powerful. I remember growing up, I was raised Catholic. The idea of past lives, was very conditioned out of me. That is, foreign. You've got this one life. You have guilt. You have shame. You are a separate person from God. This is how I was raised. And so when these concepts were introduced to me, it was something that I really needed to relearn. I needed to remember, because these are the truths. And how I knew they were truths was by how they felt. When I started to explore these other concepts, I realized, wow, there's so much truth to that. Or, I can really see how that applies. And this is how, you start to then navigate life. Not so much what you're told is right or wrong, but rather how does something feel? And it's a totally different way of living life. When you operate by feeling, and less off of what you're told.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because even if you study Christianity a little bit, Catholicism, it doesn't want to branch. The underbelly was all about incarnation, and people are like, what do you mean? Well, how do you come in with the ultimate sin? That's karma. but they never directly talked about that. It was always in the background. So it's not that Buddhists
These were removed.
Yeah, it's not that Buddhists hold the idea of incarnation and Christians don't. They did, but it was removed. It was in the background. But when you start studying it like a little bit deeper, it was always there. And it's cause and effect, right? What you put out is what you get back. So it's almost like, someone gets up, you know, like when we were kids, we do different stuff, challenge each other, like, walk across the top of a fence. So you walk across the top of the fence, you make it halfway through the middle, you fall down. What do? You go back to the line, try it again. You don't give up, unless you're late for dinner. You got to get home, you get your ass kicked in,
The street lights came on.
Yeah, you're going to do it till you make it to a portion of it that you made it beyond the point in which you did the last time, and you call that a win. So we keep going until, that's what it is. So if you look at life from a fractal standpoint, a replication of everything, when you were kids, you did this to best you can to the ability till you moved into a whole nother experience. But you didn't just do something for the first time like, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. No, you're like, okay, how far can I go? And then you realize, okay, this is cool. I moved beyond the point, and this is the only point I want to go, so let me go on to something else. There's a huge pattern, like you cannot deny this pattern. And she just takes this pattern of a story into a whole nother realm that most people are like, what? Again, I know very little about it compared to, say, Dolores Cannon did, but I don't deny it, because if I deny it, I have to shut it completely out of my life. But there seems to be a connection here. When I look at life and stop breaking it down, I'm like, yeah, this is a pattern that replicates throughout time in each individual's life and even throughout history. So it's not to be ignored, but it's to be furthered, and each individual wants to start to experience that replication.
Yep. One thing I want to touch on about that last clip too that I loved is just the way that she explains karma very simply. In fact, she described it as the baggage, and garbage that we kind of carry with us. And so I've heard karma described in so many ways. And usually it's kind of off the mark, in my opinion. It's like, oh, I did something wrong, so something bad happened to me. Yes, that's a form of it, but I mean, this works both ways. There's no such thing as good or bad. It's our thinking that makes it so. That famous line. Who was that? There's no good, or there's no such thing as good or bad, but thinking. Why can't I think of his name?
His name is Shakespeare?
Shakespeare, thank you.
William Shakespeare.
Give credit to the quote, but there's so much truth.
I'll give you credit, Mike.
Truth
Mike actually came up with
that was me in my past life.
Yeah.
He
was William Shakespeare.
That was William Shakespeare in a past life. So
start speaking Old English.
Right.
For there is a perspective shift. Thou are not.
I couldn't even get that far. Nicely done.
But I have no idea what I just said.
I love that Dolores brought up the family aspect of like, hey, look, the people that we come and incarnate with are just other souls, okay? So who you view as like your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters, etc. Sure, in this circumstance, in this environment, in this reality right now, that's the roles that are being played. But there's multiple roles where, your mother could have been your sister, your brother could have been your father, all these different things. And we don't think about that. In fact, it's kind of something we don't focus on, especially in a Western culture, that like, hey, look, this is all karma being played out. Like Frank and I could have been brothers in a life, whatever. Frank could have been a father. I could have been Frank's father. Like that's how this works.
Hey, Daddy.
But truly, that's what this is. And when we choose the role, we're like, okay, I want to learn that. I want to experience that. And then we come here, we choose our parents, we choose the experience on the back end, and then we come here and then we experience it. We're not taught that at all in Western culture. Yeah. We're taught that like, we were born, we're a product of our parents, we have their genes. If they have cancer in their genes, we're going to get cancer. If they're not intelligent, we're not going to be all this bullshit. All of it bullshit.
But a lot of when you start to do deductive reasoning and you look at it, there is a replication here. So I always like to use the analogy of film and movies. So I think I used this analogy before. I'm going to use it again. So you have characters or you have actors. So look at Robert De Niro, Jennifer Lawrence, and Bradley Cooper. All right. Yeah. I want to say, I could be wrong. I think they were in 3 movies together. All right, if not 2. But in each movie, so in Silver Lining Playbook.
Yeah.
Playbook.
I know what you're talking about.
Robert De Niro was Bradley Cooper's father. But yet, so you look at Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, and Robert De Niro as the soul. But the characters they played were just a persona. So me and Mike and Frank are characters, but our souls could have been having a different experience in a different plane in time, or what we call time. But then when the movie Joy came out, Robert De Niro played Jennifer Lawrence's father, and Bradley Cooper was somebody else that was just a business person. But yet all these people are playing a different role, but their actually role is different. So you're starting to see the replication. So when you wake up and see there's a pattern here. So when everyone like, wow, there's all these patterns in the world, I'm like, yeah, but get to the understanding what it means for you. Don't just look at a kaleidoscope like that's cool, or a Fibonacci sequence when you look at a flower. Like, it's here to tell us, like, it's a sign that says, yes, look at the replications in your life, and when you actually come upon the next cycle, what can I do differently that I didn't do before? Don't try to do it better, just do it different and expansive, and all of a sudden you'll get expansive. But you keep doing the same thing over and over. It's the laborious act of doing it over and over that creates the downfall of the individual and the society. But when you expand upon, yes, we know what's wrong, so we don't do that, and we know it works. And what's wrong and what works is what's wrong is what breaks down, what fragments, what puts to an end. That doesn't work. But what expands in the field of collaboration, that's what we get. I'm like, okay. So these three souls, the Robert De Niro, the Jennifer Lawrence, and the Bradley Cooper, they agreed to play these different movies. But the characters had a timeline, and if the movie was 2 hours, that's all it was. Well, count the time. It was
our life at 2 hours is 89 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's
like Forrest Gump was a little of a 2 hour movie, but it spanned 4 decades, right? So it shows you that there's really no linear other than the act of telling a story and the recording of it. But empirically, it doesn't really exist. But yet, at some level, it does. It's not like to ignore it. So even all these things that we're going through, there is there is an understanding that my parent had this attribute, so I'm going to have that attribute. Okay, I accept that. Now we get to an understanding of replication, of changing it. All of a sudden, nothing remains the same. I can then get out of that cycle that isn't good, because I don't want to throw the baby out the bathwater. If my parents did have good concepts, I don't want to throw that out. I don't want to wipe my genetic whole makeup gone. I'm going to take that, and I'm like, yeah, I can do away with that. You know, we do it psychologically or socially. Like, you see our parents did something, right? Okay, that worked, but let's do away with that. Like, you know. And sometimes we did throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you start to see a lot of parents that were raising kids, and they're like, I'm going to do the complete opposite of what my parents did. And I'm like, well, that turned out disastrous too. So, like, okay, it did. There's a balance point. Like, okay, let's keep this and let's wean this out. Let's keep this, let's wean this out. And that seems to be a really good concept, a really good process of moving through this world in a better way. And I don't know what the ultimate goal is, other than when I have my experiences now, no matter what happens, I step into it like this is going to work out. Even though I don't know how it's going to work out. But when I say that and I actually really feel it, it's amazing how I can start to see things to respond to. So when I respond to that, then I could say, it worked out because I responded to this. And I'm like, okay, there's really no way to prove it, although quantum physicists are actually getting to a greater understanding of proving it. And even like what Dolores is talking about here, for someone that could look at it, they could just completely dismiss it, and that's their right. So it's very difficult to prove a lot of stuff. You know, we're still fighting over whether the earth that we live on is flat or round to some people. So it's like, you know, so I'm not here to prove anything, but here through deductive reasoning and just examine your life, just your life in the period you've been here, and look at these different fractals of understanding. I'm like, there's something here. There is something here, and it's our individual job to go explore it, and then, you know, be kind to the people around you because they might be your dad in the next lifetime.
That's so the truth.
It's like, shit!
I think about that all the time. It's like the people I'm running into,
my
or interacting with. It's like I don't know what roles we'll be playing,
No.
or what roles we have played in other past lives. And you begin to just interact with people on a much different level, a much more meaningful level, because you start to see yourself in them, and you realize, wow, I can see source in you.
Yeah.
Just like I know the source in me, I can see that source in you.
Yeah, and if you're playing a role like actors do, we're actors doing it, right? But like we separate us from the people that are on a lot making a movie, but we're not. It's just a different fractal
But that's
uplift.
changing through YouTube and stuff. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
With like iPhones and shit, and
Yeah.
just people blowing up and
Yeah,
coming
like-
viral because of their normal everyday videos?
Yeah, so
It's because of exactly what you just described.
Yeah, so here
we're
it
all
is.
actors.
Yeah, we're all actors, and we're starting to come to that realization. So, like, I love to act. I'm like, you have not ever acted.
Yep.
The second your parents like
We've just
laughed
been
at you-
conditioned to believe it in a different light.
Like when you started spitting bubbles and stuff out of your mouth, your parents left. So what did you do? You start spitting bubbles. I still do it, by the way. They stopped laughing years ago, but it's like they're a little worried about me.
Stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it. Someone's gonna find it humorous, but
Hell yeah, Frank.
yeah, I haven't evolved as much as most, but yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with that,
Hey.
Yeah,
Small steps.
very
You know.
small steps.
I love
Yeah.
it. Should we play our... Oh, wait, this next clip was kind of cool. So Frank and I, we'll come together before each episode, and then we'll kind of shoot each other, hey, this is a clip I'd like to include this week, and why we like it or whatever. Well, Frank and I sent the exact same clip this week, which was unique. That never happens to us.
Yeah, so when we do our investigation or work behind this thing, we do it independently from each other.
Correct.
And the reason we do that is because we want to have fresh conversation about it. I want to learn something from Mike. Mike wants to learn something from me. I don't know much I can teach Mike, but
It's all give and take.
yeah. So when Mike sent me this video, I was actually setting it up already on the laptop, and he shoots me a video. Not only the same video, it's the same timestamp on the video.
Yep.
Because I think the video is like 2 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is one of the
And
long
it's
ones,
the
so
same
that's why I was
timestamp.
surprised.
So obviously today, me and Mike are in sync.
Yep.
All
Just
right.
another synchronicity.
Here you go.
Fear is the strongest emotion that a human has. We have to let go of that so that we can move into a new direction. Fear holds us back. It cripples us. And too many people are bound up in it. That's one of the things I've been told to tell people is to let go of fear. Also to let go of karma. Those are the two main things, because we drag karma around. It's like a lot of baggage and garbage. And it holds us back and makes us sick. Until we can dump these things, we're not going to be able to move forward into the new world, the new dimension, and the new frequencies. But that was my main message I've been told to tell people, is to release karma, because in anything that's going to hold you back, we don't need. Karma is the garbage and the baggage we carry around with us through the different lifetimes. Sometimes it goes to a relationship, and sometimes we've had the relationship with the same people through many lifetimes, set up a pattern. And the same life, the same situations repeating itself again and again. Because if you don't work it out, you have to come back and do it over again. And before you come into a life, you're on the other side, you're reviewing your life you just left. And karma is the law of balance, cause and effect. If you've done something in the other life, you don't get out of it. Not even this life either. Everything you do, what goes around comes around. But when you're on the other side, you discuss the life you've just left with those people you were involved with. And you'll say, well, we didn't do such a good job, did we? Let's go back and try it again. This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife. You be the mother, I'll be the daughter. You can switch roles around any way you want. But you're brought back into the same situation again and again. That's why a lot of people can't understand, why do I keep drawing the same thing to me over and over again, the same kind of people, the same kind of situation? It's because they have not worked it out yet. They've not figured it out. The same situation again and again. And this is what happens. And if you don't work it out, you're going to have to come back and do it again with the same people. So the idea is to do it now, to get rid of it now. Get rid of the garbage and the baggage. And you can identify it by those feelings. Is there something about the situation that doesn't feel right? One of the best ways to get rid of it is just to forgive the person and release it and let it go. And I've had clients that tell me, I can't forgive them and let them go. You don't know what they did to me. But as long as they're holding on to it, that's karma. When you release it, you've let it go and you don't have that karma anymore. But they have a terrible time doing it because they're so stuck with that. But until you can release it and let the person go with love, you say, you go your way, I'll go mine, it's not working, let's tear up the contract. We're just not going to work anymore. You go your way, I'll go mine. When you do that, it's like a miracle happens. You don't have to do it face to face. You can do it mentally to the person. Saying enough is enough. I've had it. You go your way, I'll go mine, we tear up the contract. And then when it happens, all of a sudden they can't push the buttons anymore. It's only a game anyway. You ever notice that? People know what buttons to push to get you upset, to get you angry, to get a reaction out of you. Once you forgive them, let it go and release it, they can't push the buttons anymore. It doesn't bother you anymore. Then it's no fun, and they stop. But then you release out of it, and you go on to your next lesson, which may or may not be better, but at least it's a different lesson. And then you get to where you realize when you are creating karma, and you know how to stop it before it goes any further. That's what this time is all about, getting rid of the karma. Don't carry it any further, and try not to create any more. That's what this time is about right now. And I said earlier, getting rid of the fear. The fear and the karma, the two things you've got to let go of. But we're coming to a time, especially with the new earth, where the karma won't exist anymore. Those that still have it and hang on to it are not going to move forward. The main cause of cancer, especially in the intestinal area, is holding on to anger, holding on to it, not being able to talk about it, not being able to release it. And after a while, it just begins to churn around, begins to eat away at the organs, and it creates cancer because we hold everything within. That's the main thing I've found with cancer. The person can't talk about it, they can't release it. And I had one man that come to me who had cancer in every part of his body. Every time the doctors would operate on one part, it would come back in another part. He'd operate there, and would come back somewhere else in his body. And I asked him, are you angry at anything? He said, yes, my ex-wife, I hate her. She has the children and she won't let me see them. And I said, the only way you're going to get rid of this is to forgive her and release her and let her go. He said, I can't do that. I can't forgive her. If I forgive her, she has won. I said, she will win if she kills you. It's that simple. We don't hurt anybody else. We're only hurting ourselves by holding all of these things in. That's what I do in my work, is to get people to realize this.
All right, that's good, yeah.
I love that. That's such a powerful
clip.
clip.
Exactly what we were just talking about. And it is. So when you start to just conceive this type of concept and look into your life, all of a sudden you put your focus on something different than something against me, but something to collaborate. So a really good actor will go into a scene just knowing their role and be shocked by the other person's role to extract something out. And that's how they do it. A lot of times the directors will do that with actors. They'll set in something different, and the actor might read, okay, this is what's going to happen in this plot, and they'll go in there and they anticipate something. But yet the director might say, okay, I'm not going to let this actor know because I want them to be real. I don't want them to overthink it. And they'll send it in there, and they're like, well, they know they're being filmed, and sometimes they're like, oh, cut, what's going on here? And the director's like, okay, stop. cut, let's get back. And then like, hey, just do your role. But I don't like the way this person's doing it. I'm like, that's not your say. I want the response from you based on the other person. So it's kind of like, okay, if someone agitates me, who's actually being agitated or what's happening? Are they really controlling me? And the answer empirically is no. I responded. But why did I respond that way? Because I didn't think they should do that. Well, why shouldn't they have done that? Because I said so. Based off of what? I know very little to know what should have happened. We've never been here before. Like, what's today's date?
Today's
July
27th?
27th.
Ish.
Yeah,
25th.
No, that's
25th. July 25th.
No. It actually is. We
is
don't
it?
even know a freaking date. It's the 25th.
We're not too worried about dates.
Yeah, it's the 25th of July.
Around there.
And it's 2022. Me and Mike have never been here before, nor has anybody else.
Never.
Yep.
And it feels great.
Yep. And even sitting behind these mics, you people, God willing, listening to us.
Yeah.
You've never experienced this, but that's the whole thing. It's like we come into it with not knowing as much, but when we stay in the moment, respond to it. There is a theme. There is principles. There are guidelines that we can hold on to. It's not like we're just floating out in the ethers. There is boundaries that we can hold on to, but within the field of boundaries, that's where the infinite plays out. Think about how many plays have been played on Broadway. They never change the size of the stage, so to speak, but yet there's infinite plays that could be played, but yet the dynamic or the structure of the amount of feet and square footage of the stage remains the same, but somehow they're able to change the whole dynamic. So when you go to the theater one day and you go a week later to another play, it's like, this is not the same place, because it isn't. It's completely different. But yet, at some level, the structure is the same. So there is a structure to life that never changes. But how I come in and cooperate with it or fight against it, if I fight against the structure, it's gonna teach me something to not fight against it. And I still fight against structure, and I still try to go, when I know this, to go along with it. And then at times I do fight against it, and I learn. I fall down, brush my knees off and get back up again. I don't complain. I'm like, they need to change this structure. I'm like, nah, this is how it is.
This structure must be changed.
Must be. And people think that. Like, that's,
absolutely. That's what we're battling day in, day out.
When you damn God, you're saying, God, why did you create this structure? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, but there's a formula. There's an understanding. There's laws within this. If you understand them, this structure isn't that bad.
Well, the structure in itself is limitless. And this is where we get confused. We think because there's a structure, it can only be a certain number of ways or outcomes. And that's because we come from this conscious, thinking, analytical mind. When we move past that, we see that, oh my God, I've been limiting God. I've been limiting the infinite. I've been limiting source. There is no limit to the different ways that the outcomes of how something can happen.
Yeah.
And so we can take a structure and see it as a limited point of view, and we'll experience it that way.
Yeah.
But as soon as we put no limit on it, that's when the magic starts happening.
That's where the finite and the
I never
infinite,
in a million years could have thought it would have worked out this way and led to that.
But the structure never changed.
And it never changed.
Yeah. So just like the structure of a football field doesn't change, the structure of a tennis court doesn't change.
We are so limitless.
Yeah, we are.
But we limit ourselves is the issue.
In the physical world, as I see it, I've come to know it. Again, I like to debate people on this just to make sure I'm speaking right about this, because I might not. There's aspects that I don't fully understand. I don't know if I ever will. But but you got a football field that's 100 yards by 50 yards, and will there ever not be a great play been had? Like, yeah, we've done that so many times before. I'm like, no, it keeps changing. But yet the field, the structure, the distance of it never changed. But yet there's infinite ways of playing it. So without that finite, where would the infinite be? I don't want people to walk around saying, I win, I win. I'm like, win what? You can't just claim win. There has to be a structured variable to show that I know you won. When you checkmate me in chess, I know you won. You can't just start and say, I win. Mm-hmm. Some people want that. I'm like, no, it's lazy. I don't want someone to scream win. I want you to show me you won. I want to show myself I won, so to speak.
And that's what the world is. That's what this reality is helping us see that.
And there seems to be, like, I don't know how broad it is, but there seems to be, because I don't listen to news that much. I do listen to it because I don't want to be, if I'm here building bridges, I must know what islands I need to bridge them on. And I make sure I'm not swimming out in the middle of the ocean myself, It's like, absolutely. So I'm not afraid of the news. I do watch. I follow just about every little aspect of it. But there seems to be a sense of people just want to say, I win. And they want to take the snow globe and just flip it upside down. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't work. That doesn't work either. There is a structure. And when I look at life from the set of inequalities that happened over the years, it's starting to level out. Yeah, there's still inequality in the world, but it's not as bad as it was, say, in the 50s. Certainly not as bad as it was in the 1500s. But flipping the whole thing upside down creates a new inequality. And we don't want that either. We just want that nice balance point. And so there are ways to get to this place where we have pure inequality, but inequality has to be looked at different. It's not output. It's preference. What do I prefer to do? No one's going to stop me from doing that. No. And then my performance in that gives the direct outcome, not a set of not a set of individuals that say, this is your outcome regardless of what you do because you're here. I'm like, no, that's not fun. That means, like, at the end of the game, everyone, every football game's tied at 21 by 21. It will just, but just play anyway. I'm like, there's no value in that. There's nothing. There's no intricacy in that. Mm-hmm. And so even though people think they want that, I'm like, you really don't. But what me and Mike are here to do is to get people into the game. Get into the game understand the structure.
See the game.
If you see the game, then every human being has the capacity to play in the game equally. But their output will be different based on how much energy you put behind it. But once you're in the game, you can see it. Not everyone needs to be the star quarterback. The kicker wins the game.
Nor do you want to.
No, you don't. It's a preference, yeah.
It was funny. So randomly, so this weekend I was over at my girlfriend's house, and we were playing this game with her family, okay? And it's weird. Like, I was thinking this in my head. So we're playing this game called Seen It on the television.
Seen It?
Yeah, Seen It.
Oh, I thought you were telling me you were playing Twister.
Oh, like, no, it's called Seen It. And so, like, you can, like, play clips on the TV, everybody guesses, etc. So, like, it was me and my girlfriend, her sister's boyfriend, and then her mom. And we're all playing this game, right? And, like, it was, we had, like, different turns. And in the back of my head, all I could think of, it's funny. So my girlfriend's sister's pretty competitive. And so she was, like, all about, like, I want to win this game, right? Yeah. So her outcome and her ideal was winning this game. My girlfriend was, that day, it was, like, the type of thing where, like, I wanted to have an experience with her, us both laughing or whatever, the game was just a center console. It wasn't exactly the primary. And then her mom, just wanted to see, her two daughters interacting with, their boyfriends. And so, like, we all wanted
was
different
Dad there or
outcome. No, he was in the beginning. He left later on. This is when we started playing it. Like, but it was just funny because everybody has this outcome that they want. I wanted this experience with my girlfriend. Sure, maybe somebody wanted to win the game. Maybe somebody wanted to see, the interaction. We all go in thinking that we want something that everybody else wants. Like, oh, everybody wants to win this game, or everybody wants to have this experience. And that's not true. We all want our own little things out of something. Yeah. Whether that's, I want to be the quarterback. Yeah. Or, no, maybe I want to be the water boy, who takes care of the quarterback.
Yeah, because the water boy never gets tackled.
Well, the thing is, we don't know. We are so arrogant to believe that
it's the right
because
way.
I want something, this must be what everybody else wants. Yeah. And we have that level of arrogance. Yeah. And that is something I also always talk about with my girlfriend, is the fact, like, I will not allow myself to kind of confuse empathy with judging and judgment. So a lot of people are like, oh, you got to have empathy, you must feel bad for, and I began to realize that this level of empathy that we describe in Western culture is actually judgment. We look at somebody who's maybe have, like, some sort of, born with whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll call it a disability. right? And who are we to say that's a disability?
Well, I have a disability. I can't fly like Superman.
There you go.
Like,
but we make these judgments that, life must be more difficult for that person. And everybody else thinks that way. When that person could be having the best incarnation and experience
it's a complete misunderstanding
in their life. And so we think, I'm empathetic. I feel. Because you feel sorry for someone does not mean you are a better person. In fact, this is the ego in high gear, putting yourself on your soapbox. So I always think about this when people are, talking about, what if this person, was abused growing up and they felt this way? Who's to say that somebody who was abused when they were growing up could not feel that way? The arrogance that we have to judge people. So that's something that, that just kind of popped into my head as we were talking about that.
Yeah, so the reason Mike played the game is to have something to talk about on the podcast.
This is going to be a great story for the podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be a great story. But, and that's it. And that's why, so we take empathy and turn it into compassion. Compassion is we don't want anyone to suffer in the game. Nobody does.
Judgment. That's
but
really
yet
what I'm
I
getting.
could look at somebody and I don't know if they're suffering. So compassion will just go both ways. It's a lighter form. But when I I feel sorry for you, like, what the fuck you feel sorry for me? Hey, what don't feel sorry for me?
Like, that's how I picture Stephen Hawking being. Like, what do you mean? Because I'm in a fucking wheelchair and my face looks weird.
You know
what I mean? How are you going to say that man did not live a very fulfilled life?
Yeah, most people wanted his mind and the way he.
That's what I mean, though. But there's certain people that will say, I feel sorry for that person because of how they look. Yeah. And we need to see that is judgment.
Yeah, well, it's complete.
And we're wrapping it and masking it as empathy.
But
it's like, dude.
It's judgment because of the completely misunderstanding. And I think if there was ever a collective human disorder, it's thinking we know. It's thinking we know.
I'm just very careful now to be able to say, I feel sorry for that person because of this.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Karen.
That really is a judgment. Me too, man. Me fucking too.
Everyone else is good. Like Karen's like,
no, seriously, we feel for you, Karen.
Yeah, she has to deal with me. It's like,
but
all right.
One other thing I do want to bring up about Dolores too, because this is something that I love about her. So these concepts of like consciousness, etc., they're talked about with by a number of different people. One thing that she does very well that we kind of touched on in the beginning of this is the way that she touches on these concepts and mirrors them with like extraterrestrial life, UFOs, etc., and she talks about this. So we have this weird conditioning around like UFOs, extraterrestrial, all this stuff that like it's a conspiracy theory. It's weird. It's never been proven. Blah 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 blah. And as I learn more about, or as I've been on my path, my journey. And just recently, kind of learning, more about this extraterrestrial life and how it relates to consciousness. There's a huge tie. So if you have not, looked further into, that aspect, or you've kind of written it off as like, oh yeah, aliens are just, they're here or whatever. There is a big connection between this consciousness experience, extraterrestrial life, all this that I had never known about, and I've just recently seen how these concepts are brought together, and how these other forms of life we're able to not only interact with, but most importantly learn from, and grow with and interact with. And that has really opened my eyes to a whole number of different concepts, but just beautiful information. So I figured I'd kind of throw that out there.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about, listening to Grandma talk about consciousness. That's awesome.
Yeah, and she's been for over 20-something years talking about UFO or extraterrestrial.
Yeah, and to hear her connect it with consciousness is beautiful.
Do you ever like everyone talks about like how extraterrestrials are probably higher, more intelligent? Can you imagine we are it? As the intelligence,
well,
and they're like up in in different planet systems and like blowing bubbles, and we're like the intellects of the world. I pray to God that's not true, but
well, I've actually heard, and Dolores has said this too. Different extraterrestrial life looks at our experience, and they say, "Wow, that's
That's
kind
a
of difficult."
tough gig.
Yeah,
It's a tough gig. Yeah.
and because of the stuff we knowingly kind of put ourselves through.
We're like the TV,
the karma we experience.
We're like the TV series Alone.
Oh, totally. We're
Just dropped off in the middle of nowhere. And we were willing to do it, but like 3 days in, you're like, what was I thinking? Like, holy shit.
I just figure I'd kind of bring that up because not too. So people will talk about consciousness, great. They'll talk about extraterrestrials, and they talk as if they are like kind of a separate
Yeah, they're not.
thing,
It's
and they're
parcel.
not. And that was very cool thing that Dolores helped do for me.
Yeah, it's another fractal onto the expansion of what we understand. There's just ripples and ripples beyond it. So obviously, be in the present moment with your ripple, but know that you're not the only ripple. And if you know you're not the only ripple, it leaves open to the excitement of other ripples, which keeps you in the present moment. And that's what this is all about. We stay present. We're prepared. We're not present. We're out of balance. We're not prepared. Mm-hmm. Right? I can only have a conversation with the one that's in front of me. I don't think about anything else. At least I try not to. And things just come. We'll never run out of discussing. And every time I talk about stuff, I learned something new. I expand beyond it. And that's the excitement, not look what I gathered.
Yeah.
Like what I gathered is all day, it's like talking about the hamburger yesterday. I'm like, I'm looking forward to the meal in front of me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't have a hamburger yesterday, by the way.
I wish I did.
Yeah, Karen has me off of that.
Can't even eat hamburgers anymore.
Here's your salad, Frank. Yeah. It is? She told me that she has to die before me.
Deal.
I'm like, shit, why can't we die together? And she looks at me. It's like,
I'm getting out of here first.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, fine.
Deal.
So I got to eat salads now. All right.
Thanks for joining us this week, guys. It was awesome, getting to chat about Mrs. Dolores Cannon. She's an extremely wise lady.
If you
very enlightened individual.
Yeah, if you never checked it out, go on YouTube. A lot of content on there. She's written.
She has her own channel.
Yeah, several books, and All right. I hope you like our show. If you do, go to the comments below and click, and definitely subscribe if you haven't. It keeps this channel going.
Absolutely.
And if you have any comments or questions beyond that, you can go to Perspective Shift 2020 and at gmail.com and send it out. If we can, we'll get back to you. We will get back to you.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Thanks all.